All right, hello everyone. What's up? Want to run through today's information real quick. I don't know why that says April 15th. It's interesting. There we go. All right, so focus today is learn about something called invasive species, what they are, how they affect ecosystems, and how they're controlled or attempted to be controlled. I have a intro video. It's about 4 minutes long. Hopefully you possibly watched that already. If you haven't, please go back and watch it. It's got a lot of good examples of different plants and animals you can see from places around the world and see how famous you are in terms of one of the world's most famous invasive species being right in Ohio. And yeah, so then I'm going to go through a quick PowerPoint with you over some things. And then you have a fairly simple assignment to do about alien species where you get to pick one for yourself. So here we go. Let's check out this. Well, here's the PowerPoint anyways. Okay. Let's go with the laser pointer. All right. So this is some terms I just wanted you to know. So if you ever hear these different terms, invasive species, exotic species, introduced species, alien species, there's tiny differences, but essentially they're referring to the same thing. So what is it? That's it's a species of plant, animal, fungus that's not native. It doesn't come from an ecosystem where it might currently be found at. And it's the second biggest threat to life or biodiversity. The first greatest threat is habitat loss, but alien species are right behind that. And that's what this has a huge effect on the decline of the things that are endangered or threatened in the world are usually due to alien species effects. Let's go back there. So why are they such a problem? Again, they kind of crowd out the things that are supposed to be in an ecosystem. The native things get crowded out by these aliens because they can. They don't really have any predators or factors that limit their population growth, and so they just kind of go crazy and take over. How do they get places? Usually by humans, or get these things transported different places. It's usually unintentional. These are some ways that happens. A lot have been transferred in the ballast water of ships, which is like water that's sucked into a large ship to put in the hull of the ship when it's empty to keep it sitting lower in the water. And then so they might take in water over in Europe somewhere, come over to North America, and then they release that water when they're ready to take on some other type of cargo. This actually is the way that one of the most famous ones, the zebra mussel, was brought to Lake Erie, was in ballast water from the Caspian Sea. Sometimes animals or plants just end up inadvertently climbing into a boat or a plane or a car or something, and they end up places. A lot of things, like you're probably familiar with the problem with pythons in Florida and the Everglades. That's mostly because people released pets that they had that they didn't want anymore. So yeah, those are some of the main ways. Intentional wise, we sometimes use things for food. Like a lot of plants that have, that we consider weeds now were originally brought here because people thought they were really nice looking flowers in other parts of the world, mainly from Europe. Things people brought as fish to catch, or things that were imported for hunting, and then have gotten out of control. One thing that I want to make sure you understand is some ways that we try to control those. One of is called biological control, which is to use a another species of plant or animal, to usually animals, to control another invasive species, to try to find a predator or even a bacteria or virus that can wipe out an invasive species. So that is a good way to control them if it's safe itself. It avoids using chemicals or just all the work of physically removing invasive plants or trying to hunt and kill down invasive animals. This particular one is interesting. This is a cane toad, which is actually a species that was introduced in Australia to control some other insect pests, and now the cane toad got out of control and is now an invasive species of its own. That's one of the problems with biological controls. You have to be careful not to cause another problem. Chemicals can be used. Obviously, they have side effects that can be damaging, but it's one way to. You might have seen before in your life people in parks that have backpack sprayers, and they're going around spraying invasive plants to try to get rid of them from the parks. And then, just the old go out and pull some weeds, trying to physically remove plants or animals that are not supposed to be somewhere, that are invasive. That's just tough to do. It's a lot of work. Sometimes you'll see what's called prescribed burns, or fires that are small, that are controlled, that are burning out invasive species of plants. Couple specific things that, just to mention here again, this one is world famous invasive species, and it's right in our backyard, literally. It's now spread through most of Ohio. It started in Lake Erie. It's called the zebra mussel, Dreissena polymorpha. So it's a tiny little thing, actually. It's about the size of a nickel, but there are billions of them. So again, they got here from ballast water. It was released from the Caspian Sea in 1988, year that I graduated high school. Check this out, though. A single female can produce massive amounts of eggs, 30,000 to 1 million eggs in a year. Really don't have many predators here in Lake Erie or other places in the United States where they're at now. They go crazy, coating all kinds of things along shorelines. They get on animals and coat them. They get on people's boats. They clog up pipes for factories and things. They're just a major problem. And this is for sure true. They cost Ohio millions of dollars per year trying to control and remove these things. Some people actually are, I don't know if you'd say happy about them, whatever, but they have cleaned the water in Lake Erie. They're really good at filtering. So I guess one maybe not so bad effect is that, but it's certainly not worth the damage that they cause and the what they do to structures, but also to other animals, and by crowding out things that are native. This is also a real fascinating story. Well, this one's not in the United States. Well, it's in Guam, which is like a territory of the United States, but Guam had no snakes on the island. And then these brown tree snakes were brought, they were stowaways on military equipment in the 1950s, and they came from New Guinea to Guam and just went nuts. The population exploded on the island, and I mean, there's just massive amounts of these brown tree snakes. Again, that's what they look like. And they've wiped out multiple species of birds that are now extinct in Guam. And so actually, this is a species that is really strictly monitored for making sure that they don't get to other places like Hawaii. Hawaii is very serious about checking planes and things and just making sure that none of these ever make it to Hawaii. Yeah, so they have like dogs that can sniff these things out, and they search things that arrive into Hawaii. Yeah, there's just all kinds of ways they try to control these things on in Guam. So again, just as if what is an alien species, again, something that's not supposed to be in an ecosystem. It's non-native, and it arrives there and just takes off and has huge populations. Why are they such a threat? Again, mainly because they crowd out and take over these species of plants and animals that are supposed to be in an ecosystem, and just throws the whole balance of the ecosystem off, messes up the natural food webs. How are they introduced? Again, where they can be intentionally transported by humans to different places, or they can be accidentally transported, and occasionally naturally through huge hurricanes, storm stuff might move a species around. And how they control it, again, they can be controlled biologically by using other animal species to eat and control them, or to use bacteria or viruses to try to cause them to become sick. Chemical controls or physical removal. Those are the methods. Okay, so when you go to do your activity, this assignment is pretty straightforward, and the idea is just to pick a species, and here's the list. So there's some different species here. If you know of another one that's not on the list you want to do, that's fine. These are some different common invasive species, and directions are here. So you open up the directions, they're pretty straightforward. So you open that, use some solid science websites to get your information. Open a Word document, put your answers, type them on that, add the picture that you need, save it, and submit it. And here are the directions. Again, pretty straightforward. Yeah, so list your species, define what an alien or invasive species is, describe your species, what's its name, what are its traits, what kind of thing is it, what is its impact on the ecosystem that it's invading. Try to be specific. Don't just say some general vague things. Try to be specific in that particular species that you chose and where it's invasive at. Again, how was that organism that you picked introduced? Try to find out how it was brought to the place where it's now invasive. What are some methods that are used for removing that particular species? And then what's its current status? Is it still increasing its populations and it's still a major problem? Is it under control? Has it been completely contained and wiped out? Kind of what's its current status? And then make sure you include a picture of the alien species that you choose. And that's all. So get that, uploaded and submitted. And again, that would take care of your stuff there. So again, if you haven't watched that intro video, please go do that. It's short. I put this PowerPoint we just went over if you want to look at that again, and then there's your assignment to do. So have fun, take care. Maybe I'll see you someday.